Now, as I said there, it's time for this week's Outside, and I'm joined by a very special guest. As I said, he'll be a familiar face for many of our GB News audience. He attracted worldwide attention after he came out as a transracial Korean man. This led to him facing death threats and abuse, exposing a vile side of internet fame. A viral internet sensation, he's more recently been warning of the dangers of trans ideology and had, I think it's safe to say, a pretty fair amount of backlash on that too. He previously revealed he spent almost £250,000 on cosmetic surgeries. Now, Oli has been open about his gender transition and detransition, and now has released a book. It's called Gender Madness, One Man's Devastating Struggle with Woke Ideology and His Battle to Protect Children. I'm thrilled to say joining me now in the studio is Oli London. Oli, thank you very much for coming in.
So good to see you finally, Darren.
And it's nice to see the book in the flesh as well.
I know, here it is. It's finally out. It's just come out in America, so I've just got back from my American tour.
Brilliant.
I'm very excited for people to read this.
But I hear people have already been trying to cancel you over it.
Yes, so I've had so many trans activists leaving one-star reviews on book review sites from Amazon to Goodreads and, you know, all the other book retailers. Then I also had some other issues in the US. So my book was meant to be in the biggest bookstore, Barnes & Noble's, which is the equivalent of Waterstones. And at the last minute, they pulled out. Wow. So they were meant to stock it in stores, yet they're stocking books like Grandpa's Pride, which is age 4+, and it has men in fetish gear in pictures. So they're stocking that, but they refuse to stock my book in stores. So I've had a hard time, but I've also had so much tremendous support from parents, from teachers that are saying this book is really helping them.
Now, do you think it's the element of detransitioning? Do you actually think that you're almost seen as someone that's gone against it, and perhaps you're putting to bed the idea that once you've made your mind up and said, look, you know, this is who I am, this is my identity moving forwards, that actually it ain't always so?
Yeah, I mean, it's going against the narrative, and they really hate that. And that's why I do say this, the new trans activists, they are like a cult, because once you leave that cult, they demonise you, they try to cancel you. They don't want people to know the truth, that there are many, many people out there that detransition, that go through these struggles with identity and gender. They realise, you know what, I was pushed into this, or I went through this for the wrong reasons. And when they dare to speak out, they are cancelled and demonised. So what I'm trying to do is break down that barrier and tell people, you know what, there are many, many people going through this. Let's give them a platform, let's give them a voice. And I talk a lot about these detransitioners and famous cases in my book to say that there are thousands and thousands out there. And in the next 5 years, we're going to see many, many more.
And Oli, then, who do you think the whole issue of children, which is, of course, mentioned in the book extensively, but the whole issue of children, why is there such an obsession within this ideology with focusing, with a laser-like focus on children? And that's the real red flag for many British people.
Yeah, that's the issue, because, look, nobody was talking about trans issues a few years ago. It wasn't until these trans activists decided, we want to come for your children, we want to condition your children to believe that they're transgender. That is when people really took notice and were like, this is wrong. So now we're seeing in British schools, you know, gender-neutral restrooms being introduced. We're seeing teachers giving kids preferred pronouns and even giving them rewards for transitioning. And sometimes the parents aren't even aware. We, of course, saw the horrors of the Tavistock clinic, which is still going. It's not shut down just yet. It's still going. So we've seen these horrors exposed. So, you know, I think it's inherently evil for these people to target children. And look, it damages the LGBT community, because we've seen pride parades recently have become basically fetish parades when there are children present. And this is a sexualization being pushed on young people. So it really damages like normal lesbian, gay and bisexual people and, you know, trans people that have just been living their lives for many years. Suddenly this movement has been hijacked by these people pushing this sexualisation on young kids.
And what was it then, if I can ask a personal question, what was it that made you think, look, I'm going to spend almost £250,000 on this cosmetic surgery? Was it a deep-rooted... a lot of the trans debate, people talk about having feelings where they reject their own body, where they can't stand themselves and they seek change. Do you ever think that change comes with surgery?
Yeah, so, I mean, I talk a lot in the book, Gender Madness, about these issues and what led to it. So, you know, it's a variety of factors for me. It was bullying. I struggled with severe body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria as well. and, had a bad relationship with my father. So all of these things affected me and led me to want to start changing myself. Initially, I was living in Korea, so I started having surgeries to kind of get the Korean aesthetic because, I was going along with the narrative that you're allowed to identify as anything you want according to these woke activists. So they got a little bit upset with me for, going against their narrative. And then, obviously I had more surgeries. I had facial feminization and, it was a temporary happiness. And I think a lot of young people are experiencing this. They are changing themselves because they want that fix, that serotonin rush. But deep down, it's only going to make their problems worse. I think the best thing to do is address mental health struggles and give more support for young people that may be going through depression, that may be struggling on the autism spectrum, and they are being wrongly misdiagnosed and told that they are transgender and then put on puberty blockers and hormones. So I think we need to give more mental health support for young people and, let them speak about these things and not tell them that you need to transition, because I think that is the wrong approach to push on a child.
So, Oli, do you think TikTok has a lot to answer for here? Because it's, as you well know, it's a massively successful platform for young kids. And a lot of the content I see on there is, if you dare say a woman can't have a penis, you'll be thrown off the platform quicker than I don't know what. But if you say, look, I am a woman with a penis, well, happy days, hunky-dory happy days. We'll push out all your content to young children, for example. Is there a real problem here with the exacerbation of gender dysphoria on this particular platform?
100%. Why do you think we've seen this sudden spike in kids transitioning really within the last few years? And TikTok only came to Western markets around 2018. Then you had the pandemic, so kids were spending, many, many hours a day on TikTok, and they were being pushed through by the algorithm, these gender transition stories. And you notice that if you're trans and you're showing your transition, whether that's a testosterone shot, you're sharing that with your followers, you get rewarded with followers, with likes, with comments. So it is a system that rewards these people to share more and more and more, and to share more extremes, hence why Dylan Mulvaney claims to want to get pregnant, claims to be a lesbian one day. It is simply about, they want this serotonin fix. And, I also struggle with that because I was really addicted to TikTok when I was trans. For several years I was seeing every day, change your gender, change your identity, doesn't matter who you are, people will accept you. So now that I've stopped using TikTok, I barely use it now, that has helped me with my mental health so much. So I think it is harmful. And again, if we look at the correlation between the number of kids transitioning since TikTok came about, that plays a huge part.
So, Oli, would you go as far as to say British legislators should actually look at saying we ought to ban this?
I think they need to look at it because, again, it's owned by China, and the CCP can control the data of British people. And, there was recently a court in the UK found over 1 million under-13s on the app. So that was a violation of TikTok's policy because there's no under-13s. Yes. So they were actually fined, several million pounds for that. So, I think legislators need to look at it because the way the algorithm targets vulnerable kids is incredibly harmful because kids are very susceptible to what they see, especially online. And the fact that this algorithm is pushing this transgender content day in and day out, rewarding people for sharing this, I think that's harmful. So it definitely does need to be looked at. I'm not sure what the right approach is, whether it needs to be sold off to a British company and better managed or not, but it is inherently harmful.
And Oli, just to end, what would your message be to young people who may well have followed you up until now? They've gone through all this journey with you, who now look at what you're saying and feel very hurt by the fact that you're now at the front of the charge saying this is a destructive ideology. What would your message be to them to hear you out and to actually take this issue seriously?
Well, look, I understand what these people are going through, whether they're trans or non-binary. The vast majority of people are struggling internally. So in order, they change their identity in order to seek validation or to feel better about themselves. And as a society, it's rewarding these young people. So I think we need a better approach. So, I'm speaking up for these kids. They might not feel it now, but maybe in a few years they'll realise, what, they've been pushed into this and they just want to be themselves. And I think that's an important message. But, with my book, I actually teach people that, learn to love yourself, because I didn't love myself for 2 decades. I had all these surgeries. I changed myself so much beyond repair. And, kids just need to learn to love themselves. And we all go through difficult times, when we're teenagers. We question ourselves, whether that's our sexuality, whether that's who we are as a person, but it's totally normal. But we shouldn't be thinking that the only solution to fix ourselves temporarily is to transition.
Oli London, good luck with the book. Thank you very much for coming in.